Alright, so let's talk about the Fatui. The one organization we've had to fight in almost every conflict in this game. 4 out of 4 times we fought with them in the Archon quests, and they've been our enemies in countless other storylines. I don't think I need to remind anyone here of their history. They just do things to harm people, and we don't like that. The Fatui Harbingers as an organization has way too much blood on their hands right now, and the Traveler's journey through Teyvat has been nothing, if not without a lot of encounters with the Fatui. It's about as antagonistic of a relationship between us and another faction in the story as far as it goes. And such a situation isn't without intent either. Every chapter we run into the Fatui, we make it our goal to stop whatever it is they're doing. In Mondstadt, they wanted to take over the military command of the Knights and kill Dvalin, and take the Gnosis. And well, because of us, they only succeeded in one of those objectives. And of course, in Inazuma, there was the civil war they exploited through the delusion trade. We responded by killing Signora. And of course, on every other occasion, we've tried to stop the Fatui from taking the Gnosis, only to fail. I mean, that won't stop us from trying again, though, because in all likelihood in Natlan and Fontaine, we're going to try and prevent these Fatui from claiming the Gnosis yet again. Now, it was normal for the Fatui to not take us too seriously at Liyue and Mondstadt because we haven't yet shown our potential, but defeating Child should have by all means been a turning point for them. The Traveler's power grows rapidly with every passing Archon quest chapter, and by the time we reach Inazuma, we've had the power to decisively take down a middle-ranked Harbinger in Senora. Now, when we look at the events that unfolded on paper, at a surface level, this should be a clear-cut hostile relationship between the Traveler and the Fatui. And yet, it's not. Or rather, the Fatui aren't really reacting to these events the way we expect them to logically react. In the Winter Night's Lasso trailer, the Fatui Harbingers attended together in a rare meeting over Signora's funeral, and I think it's safe to assume that they are very well aware of who was responsible for her death. There was some talk about Signora, about how some of the Fatui like to make excuses to remain in Snezhnaya, some talk of Scaramouche, and then some talk about seizing authority from the gods and burning down the old world. It was a cool trailer, but there was a suspicious lack of mention about the Traveler in this meeting. With the way they were talking about Signora, it was like she did something reckless that costed her life, but there was no words about the Traveler who effectively killed her. Arlecchino was more mad at the bureaucrats than she was at the one who killed her comrade, and Capitano was just like,
though her methods tarnished her honor, Loafalta's sacrifice is a great pity. Her loss shall not hinder our progress.
Going a step further, let's visit the Sumeru Archon quest. At the end, when Dottore has completely knocked out the Traveler and Paimon, he said this.
Don't worry. I know you would never forgive me if I actually killed them.
Even Scaramouche. At this point, Scaramouche just considers himself a god and intends to betray Dottore. But even so, when given the chance to just toss Nahida aside and kill the Traveler, he didn't. He instead went straight for the Dendrognosis. At this point, it should be obvious that never in the history of the story has the Harbingers received a direct order to eliminate the Traveler. Absolutely none. In my mind, that's pretty shocking to acknowledge directly. Of course, some Harbingers don't have a problem with killing the Traveler of their own accord, as Signora was happy to accept a duel of the death before the Raiden Shogun. I also don't think that Scaramouche was against killing the Traveler, but surprisingly he didn't care enough to go out of his way to do it. He just went straight for the Dendrognosis first. Guy isn't prioritizing the Traveler at all. And of course, even Child at the Golden House says the following.
Oh, so you intend to fight me? Good. I won't kill you, Traveler. I'll just play along, to feel the thrill of battle.
The Traveler even befriended Child later, who was still an active Harbinger, who of course is still obligated to perform Fatui missions as necessary. As mentioned before, with the fact that the Traveler's power is only growing by leaps and bounds, they are quickly rising the ranks of power, and will soon be too powerful for the Fatui to just brush aside and ignore. And on top of that, with the Traveler being openly in opposition to the Fatui Harbinger's objectives, why is it that the Fatui is consistently negligent on the Traveler? Like, do you really want your fate to be increasingly dependent on the decision of this one individual who is openly against you? This right here is the mystery of the relationship between the Fatui and the Traveler. The Fatui, despite all their nasty history of aggression and belligerence, have not done anything about the Traveler. They just allow them to go on their lovely adventure and then, the Traveler has decided to engage with one of your ranks. Don't worry about it, just keep going. Or so that's how it appears. So, we're going to try and decipher what it is the Fatui are doing. What exactly is their plan surrounding the Traveler? They obviously have little desire to eliminate them, which means they must ultimately believe the Traveler to be a long-term asset for them, right? Fortunately, there's plenty of clues to draw from and plenty of possibilities to consider. Depending on whichever ones turn out to be true, could have massive implications for the story going forward. Alright, so let's get the simplest option out of the way first. The Traveler has been more useful than not, and they're partially responsible for helping the Fatui collect the Gnosis in the first place. In Liyue, the Traveler was a key player in the defeat of Osile, which would make Zhongli more willing to part with the Gnosis in the deal. In Inazuma, it was the Traveler that ended up getting knocked out, which basically forced Yae Miko to trade away the Gnosis in exchange for their life. In Sumeru, Dottore was confident that he'd get what he wants, and we were powerless to stop him. But not only that, based on how Scaramouche reacted to losing the Gnosis,
Anything but the Gnosis!
he'd likely have gone rogue and refused to hand over the Electro Gnosis anyways. So we might have made it easier for Dottore to claim the Electro Gnosis for the Tsaritsa. Mondstadt was a little more complicated. But with Storm Terror out of the picture, Venti and the Knights let their guard down, and of course the Traveler was so weak they couldn't do anything. With all of this in mind, it's not hard to make the case that the Fatui have been so successful precisely because of the Traveler. All of this could technically be true, but it can't be the only reason behind the Fatui's actions. What it boils down to is gambling the Traveler's usefulness as a tool, and being confident you can just swoop in and collect the Gnosis despite their resistance. Like, for example, by the time we arrive at Natlin, we just might be way too strong for the Fatui to exploit us like that. And if the Traveler decides to take the Gnosis for themselves, nothing short of an all-out battle against the top Harbingers could get it, hypothetically speaking. So with that said, let's go into some more concrete reasons for the Fatui being so dismissive of us. Zhongli's contract with the Tsaritsa. It could have been agreed upon as a clause of Zhongli's conditions for the Geonosis that the Fatui will not go out of their way to hunt down the Traveler. The Archons are always suspect, but Zhongli in particular has expressed comments that show he values the Traveler's unique existence. He rightfully claimed the Traveler to be a memory record of Tevat's true history, and this was later proven to be correct by the erasure of Greater Lord Rukkhadevata. He also believes that one day the Traveler themselves will learn the terms of the contracts, which seems to indicate that it'll be important for the Traveler to know. Personally, I'm skeptical that Zhongli's contracts involves any clause dealing with the Traveler in any way, but it could be his way of protecting us. Zhongli is an Archon and so holds many secrets, and this is a secret we'll soon uncover. Of course, this theory is on incredibly shaky ground because the two sides have fought to the death following the completion of this deal. It would have to be something super specific, not necessarily swearing the guarantee of the Traveler's life, but something like at least granting them a fair chance at finishing their journey. I think this one ultimately is unlikely to be true. The next one is about Dottore having files on the Descenders. Given the fact that the Heavenly Principles is a Descender as well as the Traveler, the Fatui could be trying to collect intel on the Descenders, and the Traveler just so happens to be the most easily accessible subject. There's a strong possibility that the Fatui are observing the Traveler and constantly updating information on them to see if they can learn anything new about Descenders as a whole. The Fatui's ultimate enemy are also Descenders themselves, and we've already seen how Descenders have unique advantages over native Tevatans. In the Sumeru Archon quest, Nahida used the power of 2 Gnosis to erase Greater Lord Rukkhadevata. This naturally entails the notion that the Heavenly Principles have such a terrifyingly thorough degree of control over Teyvat through powers that are non-native to this world, because their powers naturally exceed just the two of their own little artifacts. Which then takes me to the main point. The Traveler could very well be a key point of study for the Fatui in the search for any leads to counter the Heavenly Principles' avenues of power. And so it would be imperative to keep the Traveler alive, because what knowledge they stand to gain about the Descenders as a whole would far outweigh the downsides of losing a few Harbingers in battle. I think as time goes on, we will learn more about the nature of the Descenders, which means there's a good chance that there's something going on here. Now, the last point I want to bring up is the fact that Piero is a former acquaintance of the Abyss sibling. After the 3.3 Interlude Archon quest, it was revealed that Piero was formerly acquainted with our twin sibling. There's not too much we can make of this so far. We know at the very minimum that the Fatui and the Abyss Order aren't exactly allies. However, I don't think that the Abyss Twin right now would take too kindly to the Fatui Harbingers just sending their strongest ranks to eliminate the Traveler. That would definitely spark some tensions which benefit neither side. We're not exactly sure what our twin told Piero, and we don't know how much Piero knows about us. But there is a connection here, and whatever significance this connection may have will reveal itself in time. So, these are the factors which provide us with possibilities as to how the Fatui view the Traveler. No matter what the truth may be, there seems to be a common pattern that keeping the Traveler alive and free is far preferable than the alternative. It's a very risky gamble to be sure, but given the popularity of the theory that the Traveler will ultimately team up with the Fatui for the revolution, people do believe that this will benefit the Fatui in the long run. And that brings me to my personal conclusion on the matter. While us, the Traveler, may consider the Fatui as our enemies, the Fatui doesn't really believe the same for us. And that makes things interesting going forward, because it means the hostilities between the two factions are built atop shaky ground. As shown with Child, we may fight individual members of the Fatui because we perceive their actions as evil, or at least ideologically opposed to our own, but our attitudes to the whole of the Fatui isn't as tough as it should be. And because they don't seem to hate us very much at all, it means the doors to future collaboration is open. But of course, that's just my take on things. I didn't list every possible detail here, so if you have anything more to contribute in regards to the Traveler's relationship to the Fatui, feel free to tell me in the comments. Maybe I missed something on this topic, who knows. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.